Hey everybody, welcome into M&M across the board. Ashley, Sean, Eric with you as we are every week. And what a wild weekend of NFL football that we're coming off of, much to the chagrin of Mr. Martin, whose team did not move on to the next round. We're going to get into the NFL. We're going to get into the NBA, which we don't do very much, but we're going to do some mid-season evaluations of teams, who's better than we thought, who's worse than we thought. And a topic this week, what makes a sport a sport? What sports are sports? What sports aren't sports? We'll get into the whole thing. A little controversial, and I'm sure people will feel very strongly one way or another about certain things, but that's what makes it fun. So let's start with the NFL, Mr. McDowell.
All right, conveniently 4 games coming up. I've got 4 downs. First down, the top AFC seed Titans. They enjoyed their bye week, but I don't think they enjoyed watching Joe Burrow on film this week, you guys. Because over the last 3, he's completed 76% of his passes, averaging 405 yards, okay? And that's not good for Tennessee. They gave up the 8th most passing yards, just over 245 a game. So since he needs to put up the points, try to open it up. Yes, Derrick Henry's coming back, but they need to keep him quiet and force Tannehill to have a pass fest. And we know, Ashley, how you and others feel about that happening for Tannehill. We know that will work out. No. So the first playoff win in over 30 years coming at home was great for Cincinnati, but I don't think they're going to settle for that. I believe in the Bengals. Second down, great job by San Francisco. Shawnee called it. Watch out for the Niners. Popping yet another annual Dallas hot air balloon, like death in Texas. The questions here, of course, are Bosa's status. He's got the concussion. He didn't practice yesterday, and we're taping this show on a Wednesday. And then you got Jimmy G, who had limited practice time. He's got shoulder and thumb issue. Rushing day like they did in Texas, and dump off the passes to Kittle and just eat up the clock. Adams was 12 for 132 in the earlier season win by the Bay. If the Niners don't get to Rodgers, they don't get to the NFC Championship. I don't think they'll do either, and I like the Pack at home. Third down, Odell. Boy, we dumped on him in August when he was in Cleveland, and it's Odell is oh my now for the Rams. And you add Kupp with that. They provided 2 huge toys for Stafford to play with. You can also bet that Brady, as we speak, has a plan to deal with Donald and that dominant D-line while his O-front is not healthy. That's a concern, but he finds a way. The Rams looked phenomenal and showed what their D is capable of. How about that? 21-0 at the half. Cards had 40 yards of offense before their first down. 1-5, by the way, down the stretch. Ooh, who said something about that? Anyway. Stafford got his first playoff win. He might just get his second, but until Brady no longer plays like Tom Brady, the Bucs have enough weapons to pull it out. And then fourth down. If the league allowed 2 AFC teams to play for the Super Bowl, wouldn't it be sweet to see the new QB rivalry of this era, Mahomes and Allen? 7 TDs and no punts against what was a pretty good Pats defense. If Buffalo can do that just 3 more times, it's title time. But KC has cleaned things up since Pat had those 3 turnovers. We dumped on him way back when they lost at home to the Bills. Buffalo has 5 straight wins. Chiefs have won 10 of 11. Wow, this is going to be fun. This is going to be like watching the Manning-Brady era all over again. So I think Mahomes pulls it out. But Buffalo will use this experience to make the bowl next year. I will now punt to Sean. Thanks.
Couple of things, right? Hey, I nailed Frisco. Just like we forgot to mention last week.
Yeah, that was one of the sexiest road team picks that I was hearing out there. I don't know that there were many people out there who were like, yeah, Dallas is going to win.
Yeah, well, you know what? Dallas might have had a shot, and you can blame the refs all you want. The referee was doing his job on that last play. Yeah. I mean, for you to call a quarterback draw with no timeouts and 14 seconds left is stupid.
You deserve to lose.
You deserve to lose. And Dak Prescott should know that when you get the ball, you give it to the umpire to spot it, not to your center. Mm-hmm. All right. So good for them. And I hate the Cowboys. And I laughed and laughed and laughed with the way that ended.
Yeah, it was absurd.
I like Buffalo over Kansas City. I think, let's go back into our memory banks from a week ago. I think someone called for the Bills to beat the Pats by 3 touchdowns. Yes. Got that one right. I got to live high. I got about 3 picks right in 15 years, so I got to roll off it. I think Frisco's going to struggle in Green Bay. I think warm weather teams going to play in the cold sometimes gets overblown. Not necessarily this time. Garoppolo's got some injuries he's dealing with. And when you're in the cold and you get hit, it seems to hurt a little more. So, yeah, I think he's going to struggle up there. I think it's going to be a great game. I like Frisco to hang with him and to lose. And to me, right now, the matchup I would love to see the most is Buffalo and the Rams. Because the Rams, to me, are the most exciting team with the way they play defense. Odell has stepped up, made Kupp better in the backfield. And Michelle and Cam Akers is phenomenal. And can Matt Stafford build off of what he did last week? He finally got a playoff win. I think they're good enough. I think Brady at some point is going to feel the pinch of not having Godwin and Fournette and that other idiot that walked off the field. I think that might bite him in the backside this week. I like the Bengals over Tennessee, and not a big Tennessee guy. They would have been the team I'd want to play anyway, because with all the great quarterbacks in the league, I'll take my chances with Ryan Tannehill. And yeah, Derrick Henry is back, but Derrick Henry also had a foot injury. How long was he off his foot? Is he back into game shape? Can he run the ball? Is he going to run the rock 25 times, or is 10 about his limit? We don't know. We'll find out. But I think the Bengals are clicking. They could use Hendrickson back on defense. He was a pain in the ass on Saturday before he left the game with a concussion. And the one thing I want to talk about with the Raider game, at the end of the game, I was not happy. I said to my wife, okay, you know what? It's been 19 years since we played a meaningful game like this. They got down 10. They came back and rallied. It's been a crazy year, but a fun year. 10 wins, made the playoffs. What bothered me about that game, the inadvertent whistle was what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. What bothered me about it was the NFL knew the rule and ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say that call cost the Raiders the game. Okay. The Raiders lost the game because they had too many mistakes, too many penalties, too many turnovers. And when you make mistakes like that on the road in the playoffs, you lose games. Okay. And even if they had replayed the down, you don't know that the Bengals wouldn't have gotten a touchdown then, or a minimum field goal on the drive, because McPherson doesn't seem to ever miss. But I also say, okay, well, before they lost by 7, it would have been a 3-point game. The Raiders could have kicked a field goal in that last drive to go into overtime. Not true, because you don't know how the game's going to play out. It happened early enough. It was third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how the next 22 minutes, whatever it was, is going to play out. The Bengals went conservative with 4 minutes left, trying to run some clock before they sent the ball back to the Raiders and punted. A 3-point game, they might have been a little more aggressive. And Burrow was on fire. And he wasn't getting big chunks of yards, but he was getting a lot of completions with Chase and his tight end. So I can't blame the loss on that. I want to get that out there. I'm not happy about it, but it's a whole thing I have with the NFL. They had an inadvertent whistle. Okay, things happen. Then they lied about it after the game. And that just, own it. Make mistakes in life. Own it. Don't lie about it. And come on, everybody knows that whistle happened before the play was completed. So now that rant's over, Ashley, how about you?
I thought inadvertent whistles were a thing of the past. Didn't it feel like they went away for like you would get them pretty often in the NFL? It almost felt like pre-review. But then once review came into play, it felt like refs swallowed the whistle a little more, knowing that there was a backup system to the whole thing. And that's why now referees do not blow fumbles dead. They don't call it an incomplete pass almost ever, even when it's very obvious that it's an incomplete pass, because they let the play run out and think, okay, we can review it. You can overturn something that's called a fumble and call it an incomplete pass. You can't overturn something that you blow dead when you call it an incomplete pass if the play stops. So it almost felt like inadvertent whistles were a thing of the past until last weekend. For me, I agree. The rule is the rule. You take it back, you play it over, you don't allow the touchdown. But for those people who say, to me, the whistle was so late, it was well after he threw the ball, that I can't believe that it affected the defense that much. It almost sounded like the whistle blew a second before he caught the ball in the end zone. So for me, I'm just kind of like, nah, okay. And I get it. But the rule is the rule. I agree with you. It should have come back. I just don't know that it
really rule, but you have to enforce your rule.
Yeah.
Now, Trayvon Merritt gave up a little bit, but I don't know if he just knew the ball was going to be caught and it was there.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's your rule. You got to enforce it.
Yeah, I agree.
No, again, the other observation I wanted to make, I'm wearing an Oakland A's shirt for a reason today. I'm watching that game Monday, and Eric's been banging on Cliff Kingsbury for weeks, deservedly so. I'm watching the game Monday, and I'm like, man, God, Kyler Murray might be playing center field for the A's pretty quick and honoring that commitment when they drafted him in the first round. That dude, he regressed, man. He fell right off the earth the last half of the year. He didn't even look like a capable NFL quarterback on Monday.
No, he looked flustered. He looked scared. He looked all kinds of things. And it's not even like the initial mistakes. Like the mistake in the end zone, holding the ball for 8 seconds or something ridiculous. It would have been better for him to take a freaking safety at that point. Instead, he like half-ass, like just kind of chucks it right into the hands of a defensive player, and now it goes in for a pick six. Well, now that's way worse. You've given up 7 points instead of 2, and I understand I would have had the ball back if they had gotten the safety. But the mistakes just compounded and snowballed, and he just looked totally out of it. Like on the sidelines, he looked like he had no energy. He looked like he had lost the game after it was 14-0. And if that's how your quarterback is, like, you can't have that guy as your quarterback. It's just amazing, though. I don't know that anyone, like, he was an MVP caliber quarterback for the first half of the season. And then he's gone to, like you said, Eric, they went 1-5 the rest of the way. It was
the Cardinals
so bad.
are who we thought they were. Remember?
Yeah, exactly. It just wasn't competitive. I gave up at halftime when it was 21-0 because I just thought there's no way that this Cardinals team is coming back from this. It didn't feel competitive at any point. I didn't think the Bucs-Eagles felt competitive at any point either. I know the score was a lot closer, but to me, it was just kind of trash. Like, same thing with Bills-Patriots, just not competitive. Those 2 Mac Jones touchdowns were in garbage time when that game was so far out of reach. And yeah, good call on that one, Sean. I didn't see that coming. I was most excited, I think, for both of those division games, and they were the 2 worst games of the weekend.
Yeah, the other takeaway from the weekend was they added the extra playoff team this year, and the Steelers and Eagles were just not competitive. I mean, it looked like the Steelers, after Watt scores a touchdown, they're up 7-0, and they're playing defense. It looked like, okay, you know what, maybe we have something here, and then Mahomes responded and goes right back down the field, and by all intents and purposes, the game was over.
Yeah, I mean, and the Chiefs said it, that TJ Watt touchdown just pissed them off because it was on a trick play that Reed called because the offense wasn't doing anything. And then the trick play blows up in your face and it's 7-0. And you probably think, well, like, what the F? Like, this is not how this was supposed to go. They score touchdowns on 6 straight possessions after that. Like, it was almost like, whoop, they turned it on and there was no stopping them. And that was almost identical to the way things have gone for the Chiefs this year. The first 6 games of the season, then the light turns on, and they've been unstoppable since. So the final 3 quarters of that game are the Chiefs that we've come to know more so. And I think, listen, Bills-Chiefs is going to be awesome, I hope. But we're hoping that we see the same Bills and the same Chiefs team that we saw this week so that they meet and we just have like an offensive shootout. They both have good defenses, though.
I'd like your opinion on if we can touch on some of the job openings right now, too. Houston, to me, is the worst job opening. Cully got fired. I never thought they'd get rid of him that quickly. He got him 4 wins out of chicken blank. Okay, you know we're not fans of that organization. And they beat Tennessee once, and they gave him a good game at the end. And he's gone after 1 year. Denver, don't touch that. That's not a good picnic. The QB situation's a mess, and they got new owners coming in. So you want to take a job when a brand new boss is coming in? I don't think so. And Minnesota is just in deep trouble because they have a lot of late picks. They don't pick high. They dealt a lot of them, and their cap situation is not pretty at all. So I don't know where the money's going to come for that. And if I asked for the Giants job, Ashley, I would ask a 3-year guaranteed job that I get to coach on the field for more than 2 years. Those are not pretty situations to walk into. I think that there'll be better opportunities for Leftwich to get, which he will get one this year.
If I was going for the Giants job, I'd ask for that free medium Pepsi like they gave the season ticket.
Yeah, right. I would take the Jags job, I think, before I would take some of those other jobs, just because at least you have Lawrence. They have pieces. They've showed heart. If you get a guy like Brian Flores, a guy who players clearly want to play for, I think that's a team that it's not going to be instant. There's no instant gratification in the NFL. This is not how it works. Clearly, with a guy like Justin Fields, a guy like Trevor Lawrence, teams don't just go from picking top 3 in the draft to going to the playoffs. It doesn't happen. So I think I would take the Jags job over some of those other jobs. Chicago's not bad because you have Justin Fields, and I think he is a quarterback certainly that they believe he's a franchise quarterback and a guy that you can really play with. Minnesota has talent. I don't love Kirk Cousins, but they have some talent. I don't know. The Giants job I wouldn't want. Like you said, they don't give anyone a chance, but the 3 hires that they've made have been terrible. I don't think they should have gone beyond the 2 years or the year and a half in Ben McAdoo's case that they went. So I'm hopeful that they get someone that they really like who will last 3+ seasons, even if it's a slow process. Like if you win 6 games next year or 7 games next year, sometimes you just have to be happy with progress.
Yeah. Well, Frisco Super Bowl 2 years ago, 3rd pick in the draft this past year, and now back in the playoffs. Last year that was more injuries.
All injury. Yeah.
Right.
I think the Denver job isn't as bad as it looks because there's some veteran quarterbacks that may be coming available. But you go grab one of those. You got a good defense there. You got some good running backs, decent offensive line. Yeah, if they get a quarterback, they're looking at maybe a 10-win team. And that's hard for me to, how I feel about the Broncos. I never give them credit for anything, but they're not far away, but you got to get that quarterback.
And you need to know who your boss is going to be too.
Well, you're going to need that too. I mean, the Bowen family, you got to be nuts to sell $1 billion franchise, probably more for them, given how much they're loved in that part of the country. But get along. My God.
Is the Raiders job the best job open?
Well, it's not open, but it's going to be.
Yeah, it's not open. You're interviewing everybody.
Getting fired. That Bisaccia is meeting with Mark Davis today to talk about it. I think the fact that Mayock is leaving tells me all I need to know. It depends.
That job is open.
It is.
He's their interim head coach. That's not his job.
I want him.
They wouldn't have interviewed 10 other candidates if that was his job.
I know. No, here's the thing with the Raiders. If you consider it a rebuild, I'm not interested in that. I've seen that movie way too many times in the last 25 years. They need to be tweaked. Okay.
It's a playoff team.
It's a playoff team. Exactly.
I'll take that job.
You have some free agents. You have a destination. There's no state sales tax in Nevada. So that helps get people in there. The problem I have, the smoke is all around Jim Harbaugh, who was a Raider QB coach way back in the day. And that would be okay with me. But he's now linked with Vic Fangio, who's a great defense coordinator. He's one of those guys. He's a great coordinator. I don't know about a head coach. That he would bring him in. They were together in San Francisco. So you ask me, is it a good job? Well, if you bring in a coordinator with a system that doesn't fit the talent you have,
sure,
then you got to overhaul. Okay, you got to get players that fit your system. Banjo's a 3-4 guy on defense, and the Raiders' strength on defense was their front 4 getting to the quarterback, that they could do it without the help of blitzing. So now you're going to redefine Max Crosby or Yannick Ngakoue on the other wing. You don't want to reclass those guys.
Listen, if you're a good coach, you work with what you have. You don't blow something up that works already. Like if you can't adjust just because the pieces you have don't fit the one system you're good at, well, then you're not a good NFL coach.
Well, but coaches get to that level by having a certain arrogance factor. Okay.
Sure.
This is my system, but you got to get the right tools. So again, are the Raiders going to rebuild or are they going to tweak? Now,
they've got cash though. Don't they have like $40 million to play with, Sean?
Well, you don't know what they're going to do with it. Yeah, they do have the cash, but what if Harbaugh comes in and he's not a Derek Carr fan? What are you going to go draft somebody? Now you're looking at a 3-year rebuild.
That would be ridiculous. If Harbaugh comes in, he's not a Derek Carr fan, he can go fly a kite.
Make a run at Adams because he's a Fresno guy.
They're buddies.
If he doesn't sign in Green Bay, I think they can make a good run with him, and that's a statement. And it's an attractive place to play now.
It is an attractive place. The problem is if you get a coach that doesn't want Derek Carr, now he's on a 1-year deal left at $19 million unguaranteed. You cut him when the new league year starts at no penalty. That would be a huge mistake. Now you're starting over. So again, I don't know if it's a good job. It's a good job for somebody that wants to build off of what they did this year. Other than that, it's just a complete rebuild. And I want them to keep building. I mean, my God, you finally make the playoffs. You go to a tough Bengal team, you get down 9 yards away in the last play of the game, and you're going to start over? That doesn't make sense. So there's got to be a happy medium there.
Yeah, to me, that job is the furthest thing from a complete rebuild compared compared to what you're talking about in other places. Like, you're tearing the Giants down and building them back up. I also think the Dolphins is a really good job. Again, these are two coaches who probably should still be there. That's why it's a good job, because they were good teams. The Dolphins just missed out on the playoffs. I don't know that Tua. I think the biggest question mark is Tua. He has all the weapons in the world. Jalen Waddle was one of the best rookies in the league this year. There are so many pieces there, and defensively, Xavier Howard, like, there are really good pieces there. I just think the biggest question mark is Tua your guy or is he not your guy? And I think that's what got Brian Flores fired. Tua was his guy, and the GM didn't want that.
Greer, the GM, this is a situation. You're stepping into that mess where he's the GM and he runs the show and he's over you because he wanted Tua instead of Justin Herbert. Sorry, but Flores was right, and now Flores is gone. So there's an attraction there, definitely. But again, who do you work for? We say this in our professions, like, who's the athletic director? What are you stepping into? Great person, losing program. Same thing here. You've got a GM that is really calling the shots here. I'm not saying that every head coach should be able to buy the groceries like Parcells, but you really got to do your homework. And I think the Dolphins' job has some attractions, but there's also some red flags there, and it starts with the GM. And, of course, Ross has a lot of baggage in his lap as well over the years.
Yeah. Guys, I think when you guys were making kind of picks, I think I'm going to go different than you guys. I'm going to go Rams over Bucks, because I think that O-line, if they're as injured as they appear to be, and they put pressure on Brady, it could be a long day. I also think, like you said, Sean, the injuries could come to fruition for them. With only basically, you've got Godwin out, with Mike Evans being your guy. Scotty Miller hasn't quite developed to be who he is. Gronk is still there. But I think if we get the Rams that we got last week, I think the Rams win that game. I like you, Sean. I think San Francisco goes into Lambeau and gives them a really good game. Their D-line and their O-line have been so good and so dominant. Green Bay's O-line has been injured all year long too. So obviously you have a really good running back in Aaron Jones. They can run the ball. Devontae Adams is always the key X factor for them too. But I think San Fran gives them a good game. I think the Packers win. I'm going to go Titans over Bengals. I know the Bengals are like the hot pick. I think if Derrick Henry runs the ball 20 times or more, that would indicate that he's healthy enough to be there and that he's not just – I think he's going to be there. From everything that I've heard and like read reported out there, it's that he's basically been held out longer than he needs to be. They've waited as long as they could. He's coming back. He's healthy. If he runs it 20 or more times, I think they win, because they're not going to ask Tannehill to do too much. And I just think they're going to eat up clock. They're not going to give the Bengals a whole lot in terms of time of possession if they can run the ball. So I'm going to go Titans survive at least this week.
I got, just for the record, Buffalo and Cincy. Rams, Green Bay.
Your picks.
Yeah.
Buffalo, Cincy, Rams, Green Bay. Eric, what do you got?
Well, from going over things again, I still think that Brady finds a way. I'm not going to pick them to win the whole thing, but I do think that we're going to see Cincinnati pull it out. I do like the Pack at home. I definitely think, not definite, but as I said, go with the Bucks, and I think KC. Those are the ones. But I'm still going to stick with Green Bay as we did from the start of the year to win the whole thing. Yeah. It's going to get a lot more fun. The games are going to be a lot more competitive now. We know that.
Yeah, I'll go Bills too. Those offensive line injuries for Tampa are going to be tough. If Wirfs and Jensen come back and play, so we'll see.
I'm going to go Bills. What's that? I'm interested to see in the Bills-Chiefs game. I want to see the matchup between Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and the Chiefs receivers. I think that could be really interesting. I know there was so much criticism of the Bills defense when the Patriots came and ran all over them. That doesn't have as much to do with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer as it does with the front. So I'll be interested to see how they match up with guys like Tyreek Hill and Pringle. It'll be fun. I'm most interested in that game, but the other games will be fun too. Yeah,
and before we move on, the play by Hyde the other night, that game was still very much a doubt. What a monster defensive play by him.
That's one of the best interceptions I've seen this season.
Just incredible. A great play, and it really was an exclamation point to the start the Bills had, and they built it up because they got a big stop after they got their touchdown, and he just unbelievable effort.
Yeah. I mean, you go from a tie game to then 14-0 2 minutes later. Like, it totally changed the complexity of the game.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So, folks, as we all know, it's a new year. We are in January. New year, new goals at Mohawk Honda. It's a new year with new goals. Start your year right behind the wheel of a new or pre-owned vehicle that fits your budget or your New Year's resolutions. Stop into Mohawk Honda and check out our broad selection of pre-owned inventory. We are here to find the right make, model, and price point to fit your budget. Our goal is to help you meet your goals. Let Luis, the VIP man Morales, Jake Hot Sauce Doyle, Cars with Kern Svoboda, or Mark from Clifton Park Ellis Jr. connect you up with the perfect deal. And right now is the perfect time to get top dollar for your trade-in with the Kelly Blue Book Instant Cash Offer. Same day check in your hand the day you trade in your vehicle. Just ask for Brian, Buy with BMAC McKenna, Mike Benice, Nicole Ozer, or Cam. Let's do a deal, McKenna. Again, all of our sales and leasing consultants will make your New Year's automotive goals their top priority. Start the new year right with just the new deal at Mohawk Honda in Glenville, where they always go out of their way to please you. Very good.
Oh, guys, I want to show you something. So see this sweatshirt?
Yeah.
It says Butt Kicker.
Yeah.
So this is Harrison Butker's brand, Butker, the highlighted Butt Kicker. I'm going to give a free plug. So this is made by Novice Clothing, which is located right here in the Capital Region. They're based out of Albany, to LaSalle, guys. They had a spot in the game the other night, and I was like, oh, my God, that's so cool. But I have one of Butker's shirts, even though I picked the Bills.
All righty. To the NBA we go.
Woo!
You know, a couple things. We don't talk about I think we'll see a little more NBA talk as we keep going, a little more NHL, hopefully.
I'm going to have to start watching more NBA.
Yeah, a couple things stand out for me. The breakout performer this year that I've watched a few times and I really enjoy him, Jay Morant from Memphis.
Yeah,
somebody I can't remember who it was said he has Jordan-esque type of ceiling, and he's a baller. He had
he's a freak.
Two-handed block the other night, which was just an unbelievable play. He's got the Memphis Grizzlies, who, if you ask me to name all the teams in the league, they'd probably be the last one I could think of. 31-15 and third place in the West. And I just love seeing some of these younger players just explode on the scene, and here he is. Some of the teams that I really, really enjoy, the Chicago Bulls, haven't been relevant in a long, long time. And
those trades for them were really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Great guard play they're getting. Vukovic in the middle is a stud. They got him from Orlando last year. And where the hell did the Cleveland Cavaliers come from?
Woo!
Evan Mobley, a rookie, is just a beast, 27-18. And even Dallas, 25-19. They got Luka. I'm not sure what else they have there. But they battled through some injuries, and he was a little slow, out of shape. But there's 25-19, fifth in the West. The four teams I'm looking at seem disappointing. I thought Brooklyn was going to go 82-0 this year. Okay. They're 27-16. Doesn't feel as good as it probably is. You know, they just lost Durant 4 to 6 weeks. I know if they're all healthy around playoff time, be a little bit different, but it seems like they should be a little better than they are. Eric, Boston, 23-22, 10th in the East.
Mess.
You got a lot of talent. You only get one basketball. It doesn't seem like there's any cohesion there. I don't have a favorite NBA team, and I'm trying for the Celtics be it, but they're just maddening.
Yeah.
The Lakers, 22-22, eighth in the West. They're old and dysfunctional, and you know,
we kind of all called that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean Westbrook's not a good fit there.
Yeah.
Davis, I think Davis is just too heavy. He's kind of like Zion Williams. He's carrying on too much.
I was going to say he's had some real issues this year. I mean, LeBron James is the only reason they're even where they are at, and that's a guy who's on the last leg of his career here.
And Ashley, if you want to expand and go ahead, your hat du jour, Eastern Conference finalists last year. I'm not sure what's going on down in Atlanta. Maybe you can shed a little more light on that. But those are pretty much the observations I have. But it's been a fun year in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Atlanta's been really streaky. I was never super sold on the Hawks. I've always been the one who said if Trae Young is your number one, you will never win an NBA championship. I wholeheartedly believe that because he's a ball getter, he's a points getter, but he's not. When he scores 50, they're not good. It's when he scores 30 and has 10 assists or 12 assists, and he can rebound. When he does that stuff is when they're best. The problem is the pieces around him, they're good, but they're not great. Like they don't have a bona fide number 2 even in that case. I like John Collins, but I don't know that he's a number 2 on any championship team. So I just think like their pieces are very good, but I think that's as good as it gets is good. I think they way overachieved last year. Like I don't know that anyone saw them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I would have a hard time believing they get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But it's also the same thing with like I don't think anyone saw the Bucks winning it all last year. There was a lot that happened last year that was kind of out of sorts, whether it was injuries, COVID, all of it. So I think the Hawks probably peaked last year, and now they're back down where I would expect them to be a little bit in terms of what they're doing. But like, listen, the East, I'm not going to say it sucks, but the East is very mediocre in terms of like, it's just crunched in there. Just because you're 1 or 10, I think there's like 5.5 games that separate 1 through 10. So nobody's out of it in the East, even if you're sitting outside of that 10th spot.
I want to piggyback on both of you here. I'll start with Atlanta, then Memphis, because we're going to give them the love they deserve, as John said. But I don't understand Atlanta either. One thing is they're 25th in the league in defense. They give up a ton of points. They just don't play good D. And I think Trae Young is outstanding. He's averaging 28 a game, but you're right. Now, I will say I think he's the most exciting star that franchise has had since Wilkins. I really do. Yep. But here's an example. Yeah, he scores a career and league high 56 against Portland. League high, 17 of 26, 7 of 12 from 3, 15 for 50 at the line, and he did have 14 assists. So every time he touched the ball, something great happened, but they lost 136 to 131. That can't happen.
I mean, you give up 136 points. You scored 131 and you lost.
And what you're saying, he didn't have the help, or he's not, he dished out 14 assists. Now they made a blockbuster with the Knicks. They dealt Cam Reddish and they got Kevin Knox, who averages about 1.1.
I was going to say that's a way better deal for the Knicks because I think Reddish showed last year coming off the bench in the playoffs glimpses, and he showed glimpses again this year. I like Reddish. But there just aren't enough. Everyone is about the same. You know what I mean? There's a lot of Cam Reddishes, Kevin Huerters. There's a lot of guys who feel like they're pretty equal in terms of playing status. Bogdanovich and Gallinari, they're all kind of similar. But no,
they've
like
got to make a deal. They've got February 10th. All they have to do is find a proven winning vet. Said that before. Somebody to bring in. We're not talking about 60 guys in a roster, but get that veteran that has proven to be a winner to get them flying again. And as for Memphis, do you remember when we talked about cities and irrelevant franchises? And the three of us talked that Memphis Grizzlies. Never think we'd mention them again. But, John, you're right on. They must have watched us because they are not irrelevant this year. They're going to be dangerous. I think they got a shot at the top 4 seed. And Morant is just a lot of fun to watch. And there's not many people that get to watch or do watch Memphis play. But if you don't, just go to your phone the next day, check out the highlights, the dunk, the alley-oop. He's just so much fun to watch. And it's great for the city of Memphis that has not had a lot. They once had a pro football team in that USFL and stuff.
Showboats.
But it's nice to give them some love, no question.
Yeah, I think his biggest thing is always like, his ankles are tough. Like it feels like every week it's like, oh, John Morant has a high ankle sprain. He's out for 2 weeks. And then the Grizzlies go back down without him. Then when they get him back, they have to work their way back up. So this year they're 31-15. But the most important thing I think is they're beating good teams. They're 14-8 against above 500 teams. So that's like, you're showing that you're beating the teams who are at the top of the league, which is important because it's not just like, oh, they're beating the Pistons every night or whatever team comes across or the Magic, whoever it is, they're beating good teams, which is a far cry from what used to be happening. And they're top 10 offensive and defensive ratings. So they get after it on both ends of the floor, which Sean, you brought up the block, you got the ball turned over and he just came flying in. So it's the hustle. Everything about that kid, Morant he's a star. Did you see the promotion they did?
No.
Oh, so I think it was Memphis. Was it Memphis? So a kid, I'm pretty sure a kid showed up in a Steph Curry jersey to a Memphis game. And they were like, what are you doing? You can't be. So Memphis ran a promotion. You could bring in any old jersey of any player or former team, and they would give you a Memphis Grizzlies jersey for free. You could just exchange it.
Did you get the Pepsi?
There was a line like yay long, and the kid
move.
with the Warriors jersey was the first kid in line.
That's a great move. Yeah, and they are beating good teams. They took the Warriors
perfect.
out to the woodshed recently. Yeah. I watched that. We've gone through the whole thing. We haven't even talked about Phoenix and the Warriors, the top two in the West, and even Utah, which is having a very good year. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors, excuse me, just getting Klay Thompson back too will help them.
Yeah.
As they get through some injuries, but Phoenix, they're picking up from last year's final run, single-digit losses right now. They're just kind of rolling on out there in a very tough conference.
As for Golden State, though, Steph picks the good time of the year to have a slump. Okay, you got to do it in January. 3 of 17 Miami, 5 for 24 Dallas. Better now than later. Draymond Green is beloved out there. The minute he stepped on the court, the ovation. Everybody believes that this team is coming back together. And as for Thompson, 2.5 years of rust, and he came right out, and he's showing no rust at this point. They really look solid, and I think Steph will be right in the hunt. The one thing I want to ask you, Sean, too, is Ashley made a good point. The East is just a jumble-bumble NFC East look. And here's a team in Philadelphia that has an opportunity. And they're still sitting with Simmons. He's growing mold. What the blank are they waiting for? Are they asking for Wilt, LeBron, and Steph? Make a damn deal by February 10th and take over that conference. And Embiid says he's happy and we're playing well, like 21-10. We don't need to do anything. But is there something there that he's untouchable, or are they just asking for too much?
They're probably asking for too much right now. But what your asking price or what the market is today on January 19th will most likely not be the same market on February 10th. If a team is pressed and it's a deadline and you think Ben Simmons is going to help your team, you're going to pay more when you're up against it with the deadline as opposed to today. I don't know how much value the guy has. He seems to be a bit soft, doesn't want to be criticized. Well, guess what, buddy? You're a pro athlete making a lot of cash. So you get a lot of praise, but you're going to take some heat when it's time. So you got to toughen up a little bit. He's not doing anybody any good. He's not going to go back to Philly.
No.
That ain't going to happen. So do you take pennies on the dollar, or do you wait it out until the trade down? Because you're having a good year without him, so you can afford to wait and maximize your return on him. That's why I don't see Simmons getting traded for a couple weeks.
Another team that I like and I've enjoyed watching, I don't see a ton of them, but the Charlotte Hornets, who have good young pieces. LaMelo Ball is a star. He will be a star in this league. And him paired with Miles Bridges has been a lot of fun to watch. They're 7th right now in the conference, but I think they've got a legit chance to make the playoffs, like to continue to be the good team that they are. They're 24-20, 4 games over 500. That's pretty good. I just think that combo is really good. And Bridges is, he will be in like an all-star type conversation. He's averaging 20 points a game, 7 rebounds. Those are good numbers. I just think they're fun. To me, they're a little bit like Memphis in terms of the star power and just like the flash. They probably don't have the depth of Memphis. But I've really enjoyed watching the Hornets. The Bulls, I think, I don't know that I knew the Bulls. I liked the moves that they made. But to say that like Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso have made such a difference on that team, it's kind of shocking because you're like, well, we've seen them on other teams, and it was just kind of like, they didn't really help out all that much. But on the defensive end, they've definitely helped the Bulls be who they are. And obviously when you have guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, you've got the offensive firepower and the ability to score the ball. So those two have been really fun for me to watch. And I think maybe a little bit surprising in a way.
Oh, Sean, you mentioned Brooklyn, and I love Paul Pacelli's line, our New York insider friend, that said nobody cares about the Nets. Well, I don't think they do now with that injury to Durant, but Kyrie's playing well. He's picking up about 20 points a game, and this is a good thing because now there's one less guy that will take the ball away from him. But I think they're going to be irrelevant pretty soon.
Yeah, I just think like all things said with COVID and injuries and Kyrie in, Kyrie out, now Durant out, you're 27-16. If they can survive the next 4 to 6 weeks without Durant, without having the floor totally fall out on them, I think they'll be fine. Like this is a team, just get to the playoffs. if they can be healthy and if Kyrie's going to play in the playoffs, they can be a team that certainly, I think, like, forget all the regular season. We're talking about the playoffs. The playoffs are what matter.
And Milwaukee too. They're right there with Brooklyn.
Yep.
Get there and see what happens. And that's kind of how the NBA is. A home court advantage, depending on where you play, is real. But if you're good enough, just get through the regular season. That's what the Lakers were trying to do, and we'll see if they get there. But, the Nets and Bucks are still, to me, they're the two best teams in the East at the end of the day. They're the two teams I would not want to play in a 7-game series, with all respect to the Bulls and Ashley's preseason pick to get to the finals, the Miami Heat, right there as well. So, so we'll see. So it'll be pretty exciting to see how they come down the stretch and finish up and get into some postseason matchups.
I'll close it with Utah. I mentioned Utah a few weeks ago, and I agree. But I think Utah will make a splash. They owe it to the fans there to get into the mix.
Listen, they need a postseason series win like nobody's business. That team, they're such a good regular season team, and then they underachieve in the playoffs. So you're right. The fan base deserves more. How about Bobby Portis, though, and Grayson Allen? Like, who would have thought Grayson Allen would start for the reigning NBA champs? Like, the dude is starting. What is happening? What world are we living in? Oh, God, I hated him at Duke. How
is he even in the NBA? All he does is trip people.
I hated him.
Okay. I can't stand Grayson Allen. # Duke sucks. I'll ride that one forever. He's a punk. Sorry.
I've never heard the words "I hated him" at Duke. I think I've heard that about 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
But especially with him.
He had no respect for his opponents of the game. I assume he's different now because I don't hear his name linked with any of that stuff. But too bad. Too late. Damage done. I don't forgive or forget.
And the Nuggets, we didn't even talk about them, but Jokic is the only player on that team. And listen, they're so injured. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., like, those guys are out. I understand, but, like, he has no help.
None.
If he doesn't do everything for them, they don't win.
No.
This may be the record for most 10-day contracts. They're finding people off the street this year, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right.
Next
Ashley,
up.
what do you got for us this week?
This is going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy this. Don't hold back, guys. I like when people say what's on their mind. I want the truth here. So I came up with an idea because I had this conversation a lot growing up, being an athlete, playing softball and soccer and sports like that. We'll call them the traditional sport. What makes a sport a sport? I would always have the argument of, that's not a sport, this isn't a sport. Okay, what makes a sport a sport? I wrote down the definition of sport so that we can start there. And then we'll go on from there. If you guys have any particular sports that irk you, that are labeled sports that you don't believe they are, or sports that you think should be sports that some people think, I always kind of designate sport or hobby. Which is it? That's not how you have to do it, but that's kind of how my mind works. Is it a sport or is it a hobby? If I can do it at like a high level, it's probably not a sport, at least not anymore. A sport, an activity involving physical exertion. That, to me, number one, is the key. And skill, in which an individual or team competes against another for entertainment. The entertainment thing, I don't have as much of a problem with. You can play a sport without entertaining anyone but yourself. But physical exertion and skill. So I'm going to hand it off if you guys have anything to open up with, and then we'll kind of work back around once somebody throws a sport or a hobby out there and go from there.
Yeah, I'll take the big one, and I hear it a lot. I cover a lot of high school sports, so I'm around it. Cheerleading is often brought up, and that's a sport.
Agreed.
Okay,
yeah, no question.
That's not easy to do, and you're working together as a team and all that. I had a girl work for me years ago, was part of the Siena College. A couple girls were part of the Siena College thing, and one girl, her name was her role on the team was a flyer. That's what they call the girls, that they flip 20 feet into the air.
Yeah.
That's a sport. Injuries happen. You see ankles being wrapped, your wrists and all that stuff. So I'll throw a shout out to the cheerleaders, because that is definitely a sport. It's happening. I'm glad to see that that's been recognized after years of not varsity letters and whatever. But that for me is one that's, I've heard it debated before. That's a sport.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest problem I had, so I'll be the first to admit that in high school, I was like, get out of my face. I don't want any talk about freaking cheerleaders being athletes, whatever. But the cheerleading I saw was like the cheerleaders on the sideline at football games who are legit pom-poms cheering. We didn't have as much of the competitive cheerleading back then where you've got towers of people. You have females, mostly in high school, it's mostly females lifting other females and holding them above their head. Like these ladies weightlift. Very few have guys, but some have guys now. They weightlift, they train, they run, they dance, they do all this stuff. Certainly a sport, but that's something that I've kind of had to come around to.
I'll throw to you, and I think they're related in some respect. I didn't think so, but I do now. Car racing to me is a sport because a human is driving the car. Okay. So there's physical, they're sitting in their butt, but there's also, you got to be very strong. There's a lot of emotion involved as well. I had a friend who worked with a national company, a sponsor, and they sponsored one of the car racers, and he went with the car, and it really turned the corner. But once it becomes a self-driving vehicle, then no, I don't think it is. The other, horse racing to me is a sport because something alive is racing. There is physical activity from the horse. They are competing. And a human is attached, not basically controlling the horse. So anybody that would think that horse racing is not a sport, I would disagree in that respect. Those are just two that I want to throw out there at this point. Car
is
racing
jockey and
very
athlete.
Emotional.
Yeah, because I think that takes a lot of skill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The jockey, as you say, he's on top of the horse. So guess what? If he doesn't know what he's doing, he's not going to be on top of that horse for too long.
Right.
And he's going to get tossed. He may get run over, or at best land pretty hard on the dirt. So yeah,
I agree. I think a jockey is an athlete. So this is where I get caught up: is when something requires skill but not athleticism. Is it a sport? There are a lot of things that require skill but not athleticism. A jockey is not one of them. A jockey requires skill and athleticism, so I'm in. I have a tough time. I understand it. It's a sport. I get it. I have a tough time with NASCAR drivers. I know they've hooked them up and registered their heart rates and all the things that they're doing, but like, I drive a car every day. I don't drive at 120 miles an hour, but I drive a car every day.
That far away from you on a turn. That's what
I know.
I'm just
telling you, it's really hard for me to grasp a NASCAR driver being like an athlete and it being a sport. I understand that it is. It's just a little different for me than some of the other ones.
It is different. I do classify them as athletes. Just, again, there's a big competitive factor. And yeah, as Eric said, you're inches away from somebody on either side of you, or front or back, and you're doing 200 miles an hour or whatever, even more in the Indy circuit. So I think that qualifies. It's a wide range of a definition of a term.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Poker players are not athletes, but poker's a sport. Although I'll tell you what, put your arms out in the middle of the table and raking in those chips, that could take some physical exertion. There's
no physical exertion. That is the definition. I don't give a you-know-what if it's on ESPN. That's the definition of a hobby.
It's a skill.
Definition.
It's a skill.
Yes, but no physical exertion.
Right, that's right.
Zero. You could weigh 500 pounds and the only place you walk is to the poker table.
Mental exertion.
No, that doesn't count.
Mental exertion.
Here's one too.
The definition is physical.
Yes, esports. Esports is not a sport.
That's not a sport. That's video.
Correct.
It's now becoming a sport.
Esports are no different than poker.
Right. It's a varsity sport now in colleges. They get the plush chair. First of all, if I'm sitting like this, I don't think I'm doing any sport right now. And they get these plush chairs and they're sitting on a video thing. The only physical activity is your thumb and your fingers and you're playing a game. That is not a sport. Now years ago, people bet on two roosters fighting. They call it cockfighting and they considered that a sport. But esports is like poker. It's not a sport.
Poker's a sport. And I'll tell you what the difference is between esports and poker.
None.
I don't play video games, and I used to play poker. There you go. There's your difference.
Yeah, but I've played video games in my life, and I've never played poker. So you're going to get both. Like, that can happen one way or the other.
They're both games of skill. I'll give you that.
I get it. But okay, so then chess and checkers, are those sports?
Yes.
They're games.
The games.
It doesn't mean they're sports.
That's a game. Okay, I'll give you that.
You know what I mean? Like and I understand football is also a game, but football is a sport.
No, it's different.
So let's go this route. Darts, axe throwing, anything like that. I call it a hobby. I understand it's on ESPN again. To me, it's like shooting a free throw. If I went and practiced shooting a free throw for my whole life, I could throw a dart at a target and I could throw an axe at a target. For me, the physical exertion part of it isn't quite there.
All right. What about axe sport and archery? Archery is physical.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So
Listen,
it's axing, throwing,
it's
right?
in the Olympics, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a sport. I always think like biathlon, you're freaking skiing and then you're laying on the ground after you're breathing heavy and you're shooting a target as you're like trying to the hardest part about that is bringing yourself back down to steady a shot. No question. But archery in the Olympics, yep, I'm okay with it. I get it though, like shooting a gun, like you're shooting. If you did it enough, you could probably get really good at it. And what is the physical exertion of that? Where does that qualify?
Yeah, go back to darts. It's a bar game.
Yeah.
A game you play in a tavern, and that's coming from somebody that could make a dart stick on the board to save his life if I threw it.
To me, it's like foosball, air hockey. They all like those are all games, but I don't know that they would qualify as sports.
Well, what about billiards?
What about what?
Billiards. Cool.
Billiards. Again, physical exertion not there, but it requires skill. This is where you miss out on I don't disagree that it requires a whole lot of skill.
I will say a lot of skill when you pump a 6, 8, 9 beers in you too before.
We had this debate at the Atlanta Olympics when we looked at all the little, the images that we had that because of the language you could see somebody shooting. And two things. Equestrian obviously is a sport. It is at a college level. Those young ladies that I worked with, they work night and day. And if we call horse racing, that's basically equestrian. The other is yachting. There was a lot of debate about is yachting. It's an Olympic sport, but is it really a sport? It's no different than car racing. If you see it, it's a team. It's one person here, one person here. If one of them screws up, that person either falls into the water or is tossed into the water by the teammates. So I would agree that yachting is similar to car racing. Anything that may involve a material item still has to have somebody doing it physically, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Sure.
How about ultimate Frisbee?
No.
Did you say no?
No. That's a game. That's a game
It becomes a sport once you turn 50 years old. Let's say it that way. Then it's harder.
Yeah, I mean, like Frisbee golf, I get is like just kind of a skill. Ultimate
George
Frisbee, you play like it's like on a football field and you play. I think it's a sport.
George Costanza was good at isn't a sport.
Well,
wait a minute. If it's Frisbee golf, I think that's a sport because you're.
Well, then why wouldn't ultimate Frisbee be a sport? Like ultimate Frisbee, you play. It's basically football, but with a Frisbee.
Yeah, sure.
That's a sport.
Okay.
Cornhole.
No.
But I'm just telling you, it's on ESPN. A lot of people would say it's a sport. I don't agree it's a sport. I play cornhole in my front and backyard in the summer. And listen, I'm capable of playing sports. Just because I play it doesn't mean it's not. But I think if like a majority of people in the world can play it, then it's probably not.
Yeah, horseshoes, same thing. It's more
horseshoes,
I would classify those, the term we haven't used, as a recreation.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. Yes, recreation. Correct.
Thank you.
It can also still be a game, I think, in a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, let's go play a game. All right.
Okay. All right.
Bowling?
Yeah.
Sport. Bowling, did you say?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm a little more of a waiver wire type person on that. Like not waiver wire, but I'm a little wafty on the bowling. I agree it requires skill. It also requires physical activity. It's just one of those things where like if I rolled the ball 100 times, I would probably get pretty good at it. It feels a little bit like it just becomes you do the same thing over and over. But when pins are different, I know it's different skill.
bowling's a sport. I used to bowl back in the day, 12, 13, 14. If your form isn't on exact every single time, you're going to miss. So it takes a lot of precision, a lot of practice, not as much as golf. But yeah, I would say bowling's a sport.
You're a pitcher like baseball. The one thing they have in common is that you can do things to the ball to make it do things you want it to do. So it's a sport.
Yeah.
With the proper mechanics. You got to be consistent. Otherwise, you're like me, not very good.
Yeah. Right.
I wouldn't want to
I'm a terrible bowler.
I wouldn't want to bowl with Phil Necro and Tim Wakefield, though.
I'm an awful bowler. Well, that was fun.
That was good.
That was great.
All right. Who wants to lead off the whiteboards?
I will
do it.
Because this hat has gone a long way and people wonder why. This is, by the way, one of my oldest hats in my collection because it's an old Boston Bruin hat. And this is all about, I would say, in the early to mid 70s for this hat.
Okay.
So here is number 22, Willie O'Reilly. Congratulations to a trailblazer, the Jackie Robinson of the National Hockey League. Willie O'Reilly made his debut with the Boston Bruins in Montreal, used to be his favorite team, January 18th, 1957, before all three of us, and had his number 22 retired on January 18th, 2022. He was the first, okay? Now, Jerome Ginla, the great Calgary Flame star, first black NHL player to win the Art Ross for most points. Grant Fuhr, remember the great goalie in Edmonton, the first goalie. Dirk Graham was the first captain. Players of today, like P.K. Subban, the veteran defenseman now in New Jersey, poured out their gratitude in what was a fabulously produced pre-game tribute in Boston. There is much more diversity in ice hockey today. Since 1998, Mr. O'Reilly has been the NHL's diversity ambassador, traveling all around North America to schools and youth hockey programs to promote messages of inclusion, dedication, diversity, and confidence. Athletes are people. They can make a difference that provides a legacy, achieving a goal that means so much more than just a goal that's scored in the net. So joining the likes of number 4 Orr, number 7 Esposito, and number 2 Shore, look up and you will see, high in the rafters is number 22, Willie O'Reilly.
That was some good rhyming.
Well, that's good.
I like that.
You couldn't rhyme with Bork, Neely, or O'Reilly? Come on.
That would take some time.
Smiley.
And by the way, he was not in attendance. They did a wonderful live piece with him in his home in San Diego.
You or me?
Go for it.
Okay. Because it's so much fun. Fitzmagic. So Fitzmagic has he's taken the Twitterverse by storm after a picture of him in the Bills Stadium in 7-degree weather and below, shirtless, with all of his manliness, with some kid in the stands. There were multiple pictures that got tweeted of him. I know people were sitting next to him and said he was very, very nice. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, also known as Fitzmagic, was in attendance for the Bills game shirtless. He's like a gem. He's everything. It feels like he is everything good about the NFL. The guy's a Harvard grad. He's smart. He seems personable. Played for 9 teams in 16 seasons, most recently with the Washington football team. He's feels like the king of the 1-year contract. Just keeps signing and signing and signing. Has made, I'm sure, a lot of money in his career. But he feels like he's beloved by every fan base. Like that guy walks into a bar in Miami and will never pay for a drink in his life. Buffalo, same thing. It was clear that he's so beloved. From 2010 to 2012, started 45 games for them, fit right in. The fact that he was it's just amazing to me that he's in Buffalo, essentially cheering on the Bills. And he would tell you, he said it on podcasts before, that Buffalo is his favorite city that he's ever played in. Who wouldn't want to play for Bills Mafia? But this picture has gone viral. The kid that he was with, it was an RPI student. RPI is here locally in Troy, New York. An RPI student who was at the game with his dad went up to him, took off all his clothes. He said he had 6 layers on, 7 layers on, took it all off, walked down to him and said, "Will you take a picture with me?" And he gladly did. So Ryan Fitzpatrick has been all over Twitter. I love the man. I think he's fantastic. And I hope he continues playing. And if not, if he doesn't continue playing, I hope he just goes to stadiums around the country cheering for his former teams and fan bases.
It makes me almost want to take my shirt off.
Yeah, do it.
Just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you. Before I get out my whiteboard, the NFL, anybody who watches the show knows that I love the sport, but I hate the organization that runs it. The people on Park Avenue drive me nuts. I did want to give them a real quick shout out for eradicating COVID, because toward the end of the year, they were getting near or over 100 cases a week. And all of a sudden, as soon as playoffs start, 0, none. Great job. Their doctors should be doing that. The league can't ref worth a shit, but they apparently did something good with COVID because they've had no issues.
Everybody's had it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or COVID, that's going to hurt their playoff ratings. But anyway, here's the whiteboard. '20th anniversary of what Charles Woodson calls the worst call in the history of sports. The tuck rule.
Look at Eric's face.
I should thank my neighbor at the time of 20 years. She used to call the police anytime any noise emanated from my apartment. How she didn't call the police on me that night when a full bottle of champagne found its way across my living room and hit a wall, I was pretty upset. Yeah, the biggest screw job in the history of sports. Today's the 20th anniversary. That's my message to the NFL. I still say Walt Coleman made up the rule under the hood when he was going through it. How can we screw the Raiders and find a way to get the Pats in? That's just me. I'm a Raider fan, and I'm still salty. So 20 years later, I'm not over it. Then I found out ESPN's got a 30 for 30 coming up on it, debuting February 6th. I would rather run a cheese grater across my forehead than watch that. So that's one show I will not be watching.
The 30 for 30 is strictly about that play and the ramifications.
Yeah, it took away a dynasty from the Raiders. We would have won 7 world titles over the next however long.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. It was John Gruden's last game in his first go-around before he got traded and beat us in the Super Bowl the next year. So, yeah, it altered my life, and I'm not over it, and I never will be. So
all I can say is that we waited 300 years to actually get our team on national television. And as my father once said, do you really want America to see this team? So
the answer was yes later on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never know this.
All right, so
blast.
You're bitter. Last Raiders win 2002 in the postseason, right?
Yeah, and now I'm mad again because I just relived it all in the last 3 minutes.
Well, that's your own fault. You brought it up for your whiteboard. Here on Across the Board.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get him some meds.
Listen, guess what? None of us have a team left in the playoffs, so there's that.
Okay.
You know what? It's more relaxing. It really is.
No doubt. I watch games and I'm like, oh, this is wonderful.
It's more relaxing, but it's nice when your team is in the playoffs and you have a man cave. There's also women caves out there where you can make all the noise in the world and nobody's hearing it. And then suddenly in the morning, we could hear you. That's 2 floors up. Got to soundproof our place, right, Sean?
I don't know what you really had to yell about last Saturday night, other than this. The tears, so painful. The tears going into your crying towel, maybe a little loud, but that was about it. After the Ashley's term pounding was commenced.
We'll always have these things.
You said the Pats were going to get pounded. I said the Steelers were going to get pounded. We were right on those fronts.
That's right. All righty.
M&M across the board. Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. I forgot to do that again this week. It's just becoming so casual, you know. At MMMATB1 on Twitter. We will share our content. We hope you like it, share it, subscribe to it, and we will see you guys next week. Enjoy the NFL weekend.
Take care, folks.
Bye now.